The roar of the motorcycle echoed down the quiet suburban street like distant thunder approaching a place that had forgotten what storms looked like, and as Richard "Iron Hand" Carter killed the engine in front of Ridgeline Middle School, he felt the same chill he used to feel before riding into danger. It had been months since he last saw his 12-year-old son, Alex, months of bad decisions, broken promises, and the crushing weight of a lifestyle that left little room for soft things like fatherhood. But something in his gut had dragged him here today, unannounced, unprepared, and unsure if he even deserved the boy's forgiveness. Before anything could make sense, before he could take a breath deep enough to steady his shaking hands, he saw kids scattering along the fence line, whispering, pointing, and then, he saw him. Alex. Head down. Clothes dirty. And behind him, 3 older boys shoving him hard enough to make him stumble into the mud. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of standing up for those you love, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. It helps more than you know, and it means the world to creators who try to bring meaningful stories like this to you. Richard froze. Not because he feared the boys, he'd stared down worse men in darker places, but because of the raw, helpless flinch in his son's shoulders. That tiny, silent wince shattered something inside him more violently than any bar fight punch ever had. He walked forward slowly, boots sinking into the damp earth, every step feeling heavier as years of absence wrapped chains around his chest. The moment Alex looked up and recognized him, a flicker of surprise crossed the boy's face, followed quickly by embarrassment and something that hurt even worse, disappointment. Richard wanted to speak, to explain, to apologize for every empty birthday, every vanished weekend, every time his son wondered why his father chose the road over him. But explanations felt small in the face of what he had just witnessed. He simply placed a hand gently on Alex's shoulder, guiding him away as the bullies scattered like pigeons fleeing a hawk. As they walked, Richard's mind spiraled with the pieces of a picture he had tried to ignore for months. The voicemail from Alex's mother saying things weren't good at school. The teacher's note he never answered. The distant quiet whenever he called. He had built his life around toughness, around roaring engines, iron bonds, and rules coded in loyalty, yet here was the one place where loyalty from him was needed most, and he had been entirely absent. He saw the bruises beneath Alex's sleeves. The scrape across his cheek. The dried tear marks that still stained the boy's face. Guilt crushed him harder than asphalt on bare skin. He took Alex to his motorcycle, handing him a spare jacket, trying gently to coax out answers. Alex, hesitant but exhausted, explained that the bullying had been going on for months. Older kids. No teachers helping. No adults believing him. They mocked his clothes, his quiet nature, and especially his father, the biker who was too wild and too criminal to be part of a normal life. The words sliced through Richard like hidden blades. He had always known his reputation shadowed his son, but he never realized how deeply that shadow fell. Something inside him snapped, not in anger toward Alex's tormentors, but in fury at himself. He had spent years preaching loyalty to his brothers in the Hells Angels, riding for them, fighting for them, bleeding for them. But what good was loyalty if the one person who truly needed him was left alone to face battles he shouldn't have had to fight? He told Alex to wait with the bike and walk to the far end of the schoolyard, pulling out his phone. He hesitated only a second before making the call. For years, his brothers in the Hells Angels had been his family, rough around the edges, stubborn, stubbornly united. They had never turned their backs on him. And when he told them what he had seen, what he had ignored for too long, the silence on the line lasted barely a breath before the response came, "We're on our way." When the first motorcycle rolled into town, the ground trembled. By the time the last one parked behind Richard's, the entire school looked like it had been surrounded by thunder itself. 97 Hells Angels. 97 bikers standing shoulder to shoulder in leather, steel, and unspoken fury, but not the kind of fury people feared from them. This was different. This was protective. Fierce. Determined. A statement carved into reality: you don't touch one of ours, teachers peered through blinds. Parents stared from cars. Students gathered wide-eyed, whispering with the electric pulse of disbelief. But Richard didn't let chaos take over. He walked straight into the front office, his brothers standing behind him like a wall forged from solidarity. He explained the bullying, calmly, clearly, without threatening a single soul. He laid out the evidence Alex had kept silent for months. The staff tried to deflect, to minimize, to suggest, kids will be kids, but Richard's voice never wavered. One by one, the bikers spoke up, men who had survived broken homes, violent schools, lives spent fighting for dignity. They told the administrators exactly what it meant when a vulnerable child reaches a breaking point, and exactly how dangerous indifference could be. The pressure wasn't violent. It didn't have to be. The presence of so many men who had clawed their way through the world left no room for excuses. The school board was called. Policies were examined. Teachers were questioned. By the time the sun began to dip behind the hills, Ridgeline Middle School had gone into a full, mandatory shutdown until proper anti-bullying protocols, staff trainings, and accountability measures were put in place. 97 Hells Angels may have rolled into town looking like a storm, but what they actually left behind was something much more powerful: change. While administrators scrambled, Richard found Alex sitting on a bench behind the gym, knees pulled to his chest. Richard sat beside him, the weight of years pressing on his shoulders. He wanted to speak but feared the words might crumble beneath the gravity of everything unsaid. Eventually, Alex leaned into him, not much, just enough for Richard to feel that tiny sliver of hope thawing the ice he had built around his heart. It was the first time in years that father and son simply sat together, breathing the same air, sharing the same quiet. As days passed and the school remained temporarily closed, Richard stayed with Alex. Not on a bike, not on the road, not running from responsibility, but present, grounded, determined to become a father again. His brothers helped fix up their old house, repairing stairs, repainting walls, stocking the fridge, pouring time and care into a place they knew needed rebuilding just as much as Richard did. The boy who had been bullied and forgotten finally saw what it meant to be surrounded by people who refused to let him fall again. Slowly, Alex began to laugh more. To walk taller. To ask questions about the motorcycle. To stop flinching when older kids looked his way. And Richard, despite being rough around the edges, learned how to soften, how to listen, how to be there without trying to solve everything with fists or noise. The road that once defined him became a tool, not an escape. Some days they rode together, wind in their faces, the world wide open and healing. Near the end of their school's closure, when new staff training had begun and public pressure forced real change, Richard realized something he had never expected. His brothers, the 97 angels who rode in for Alex, had become guardians not of violence but of mercy, standing as reminders that strength means nothing if it's not used to protect those who can't protect themselves. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep stories like this alive and helps us reach more people who might need a reminder that hope and courage still exist. And before the ending, please leave a comment telling us what part of this story moved you the most and why. Your words matter more than you know. In the end, the school reopened with new rules, stronger safeguards, and a community that finally paid attention. Alex walked through those doors not as the quiet target he once was, but as a kid surrounded by a family who would ride through fire for him. Richard, once a lost soul clinging to the road, found his way back to the one place he never should have left, his son's side. And though life would never be perfect, it would be honest, it would be steady, and it would be theirs.